It has been brought to our attention that depending on the platform that you listen to, you can no longer hear some of our previous episodes.
Some of our favorite episodes.
Some of the ones where people would reach out and say, hey, listen, I can't believe that you talked to insert whatever name here.
And honestly, it makes us a little sad that you can't go back in time and have a listen because the stories were really incredible.
We reference a lot of times, oh, we had a chance to talk with so-and-so in the past. And if you can't go back, then it's kind of just, oh. So we wanted to bring some of those guests, some of those former guests back into the spotlight.
We're going to call it like a rerun, I think.
A Why Me Project rerun.
Do you remember those?
I do. Back in the day, or you used to throw the tape into the VCR and, oh, we're dating ourselves.
We are, but a rerun was the opportunity to rewatch one of your favorite episodes. Now everything's so accessible. Well, we thought it was.
Yeah, exactly. So without further ado,
here's your Why Me Project rerun.
I aspired to be like, to have a career like.
Yeah.
Bill Scott, one of them, and Ryan Seacrest, the other.
Wow. Well, the difference is about $100 million difference.
Right?
Holly, I say that usually you and I are the best of friends. Mm-hmm. Maybe we could bring that party of three.
Oh, maybe.
If Bill is willing to join us in the Three Amigos.
The Three Amigos.
We could be the Three Amigos, yes. And then go get Mexican for lunch.
Yes.
Oh, that'd be good because I'm really hungry.
Bill Scott, my friend, how are you?
I'm doing good.
I remember early radio days for me, and we would listen to Saturday nights.
Gather around the radio.
Yeah, Z-Jam. What was it? Coast to coast and around the globe. Isn't that how I used to open it up?
Yes.
Something like that, yeah. And that included Canada, too.
It did. I remember the promo. I always smile because the Saturday was pronounced very American.
Yes,
and it was
very American.
Z-Jam, Saturday nights. I will never forget it. That's the beauty of radio. There are moments that people will never forget.
That is awesome. Yeah, that was honestly, out of everything I've done in 40 years in radio, the most fun and impactful show I did for a decade. I love doing Z-Jam. I don't talk to a lot of folks that remember it. I mean, it's been about 15 years since it's been on the air, but every once in a while, somebody will say something like, it wasn't too long the other day, I heard from The Color, the band, right?
Yeah.
And they grew up listening to Z-Jam. They wanted their radio guy to call me. And they were on a speakerphone. I'm thinking, I don't know why some band's calling me. I don't play music anymore, and I don't even know who The Color is. But they started talking about how they listened in Manitoba. I think on CHVN, if I remember this station, right?
That's correct.
And so that really blessed me because you don't hear a lot. And then the other day I was in a coffee shop here in town. I live in Nashville. And I put in my order and I went and sat down. And the lady comes out and she goes, "Are you Bill Scott?" I was like, yeah. She goes, I listened to you as a kid doing Z-Jam up in Indiana. And I'm like, how'd you know it was me? She goes, I would know that voice anywhere.
Yeah.
And I thought it was pretty cool. I felt pretty old because she's not a young girl anymore. I mean, she's not old, but I mean, she's like, well, she turned 40. Okay. So what does that make me? I won't tell you. But anyways, it's always a blessing to hear somebody that remembers the years of Z-Jam, because we jammed pretty hard on Saturday night.
Yeah, we sure did. It was a party.
Yeah,
coast to coast.
Makes me feel young, which is good because now, I mean, we've all known each other for so many years. Before we dive into the whole radio thing, though, I think the hardest question that I will ask you today will be, who are you and where did you come from?
Boy, that's a really good question. I think I'm just a good friend that loves radio, Christian radio. I've never really had much of a desire to do any mainstream radio. Nothing wrong in doing that. I have friends that do. That's not my heart.
Yeah.
So I think I'm just somebody who loves Christian radio and loves to be a good friend.
Where did you grow up? You say you live in Nashville now. Was that always the place? Because it seems like Nashville's the place that people move to be in music or radio.
Yeah, I've been here for, I think, 26 years. But no, I grew up in northern Michigan, not far from the Canadian border. So I'm like 1/10 Canadian.
Nice.
But yeah, little AM radio station. I think I was in 11th. Yeah, I was 11th grade in high school when I got hired. And from the first day, I knew I wanted to be in radio. the rest of my life. I remember telling my dad that. I said, this is what I'll do the rest of my life. And I don't know that he took it that seriously. I mean, you know how kids are when they're in 10th, 11th, 12th grade. They're all over the map. Yeah. But not me. I always knew I would do radio in some form or fashion my entire life. And I have been blessed to have done that. I've always worked in radio since that point in some form, right? You know, now it's more of a consultant kind of a deal. But I love it. I absolutely love it. So that's where I came from, and then sort of bounced around to a few different stations. Not a lot of stations, actually. Christian stations, probably, I think it was three Christian radio stations I worked at. There were some really cutting edge stations back in the day. And then I started Z-Jam for a decade because I wanted to do, you know, it's funny when I first got into radio, Casey Kasem, America Top 40, he was my hero. I could do Casey Kasem right now if I wanted to. I mean, but I always, and I remember thinking one day I want to do a syndicated show, but I wanted to do it via satellite so it'd be live and interactive. And wouldn't you know it, I got that opportunity to do it for a decade, and man, that was just so stinking cool. I really felt like I was living the dream every Saturday night, because we were on, I don't know, 200-300 radio stations. I think it was 300 and some. And it was just so cool. And it was, you know, it was Canada, it was the U.S., Guatemala, and the U.K. Is where it aired. And I just, you know, one, I thought it was cool radio-wise, and then I thought it was really cool because it was impacting students' lives in a big way. So that was awesome.
So you remember the very first time that you were on air?
I do. I remember my first break. They put me in the studio and they were showing me how you would go from one record to the next. And that was pretty good. I was pretty techy, not a big deal.
Records. Wow.
And it was records. Wow. Yeah. Now I'm showing the age. Yeah. Wasn't even carts. It was records.
It was records.
And so I cue them up like a champ. And I remember the guy came in and he goes, "You're going to have to read this live commercial at some point on the radio." I was like, "What?" And so I opened it up, and just for reference, the name of the place was Haberdashery.
Okay.
If you look at it, it's spelled Haberdashery. And so I did a whole commercial on Harry's Haberdashery. And thought I actually rocked it until I was told it was haberdashery, and I had mispronounced it. So, my first time on the radio, I looked like an absolute fool.
Holly, do you remember your first time?
I do, actually. I did. It was a career investigation. So I had gone to the local Christian radio station with one of my friends from school, and I would have been in grade 11. Yeah. And we just kind of job shadowed, and he put us on air and had asked us some random question just about music. And why you guys want to be here? I'm like, because we had to be. Like, it wasn't a very bright answer. I remember thinking, why didn't I say something more intellectual or more funny? But that was, for me, that was it. I'm like, this guy just wakes up, goes to work, can wear sweats, talks and listens to music for a living. Maybe I won't be a geologist or a lawyer. I'm just going to go into radio.
I think it's a pretty good gig if you ask me.
Yeah.
Plus, I was always in trouble for talking too much in school. So I thought, well, if they're going to pay me, this is a good thing.
Yeah, but then you get in front of all your program directors and that, and they're saying, "Listen, your breaks are too long. Be quiet."
That's true. So
then we're still told to be quiet.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true. I never really thought about that, but that was always an issue with my my programmers. Like, maybe just a little less is more. And I'm like, no, that's not true.
Kiss. Keep it simple. Johnny,
what
about you? Silly. What about you? First time on air?
I filled in for the morning show with your former co-host Bob.
That's right. See, here I'm like, we're little grade 11ers, and Johnny's like, I just rolled into the morning show spot.
Yeah, it was one day, and I never got back for like another year and a bit.
I started on the overnights. Back when they actually had live people in the middle of the night.
Yeah. Was that still in Michigan?
That was in Florida.
Okay.
Yeah, outside of Tampa. It was my first full-time Christian radio station. So I decided if I was going to work all night, which it covered Tampa and Orlando, which were big markets, I figured people are awake, third shifts. So I got permission to basically do a morning show in the middle of the night.
That's awesome.
And it went really good. I remember I got a memo here somewhere. I saw it the other day in like a radio book, and the ratings went up 300% because, they were programming to people that were sleeping, trying to get them to sleep, and they'd lose one every time. And I said, well, no, there's so many people awake.
Yeah.
And so I had a sports guy, a news guy. They would all record it, the night before, but we made it sound like it was live and worked the phones. And it was just really cool. And I didn't realize it, but because it was 91.1 on the educational band at midnight, all the colleges and nonprofits and stuff would go off the air. Mm-hmm. And so it meant there was nobody on anywhere near me on 91.1. So I covered the entire state of Florida in the middle of the night. From Georgia, I get calls from Georgia all the way down to Key West.
Wow.
Which is about 10-hour drive difference. And so it was so cool to have the entire state of Florida listening. I'd even get calls from ships that were going south of the Keys in the Caribbean that were listening at times. So it was really cool. And a lot of truckers listened. I could have been a trucker, honorary trucker.
10-4.
I even did remotes in the middle of the night. My boss thought I was crazy. I said, hey, could I do a remote in the middle of the night? He says, for who? I said, there's people that listen. I'm going to promote that I'm going to be at this truck stop with donuts and coffee. Yeah. And he thought I was crazy. He gave me permission. We had people from all over the state coming in and lined up, and we packed out that truck stop. Crazy. People that wanted to do a middle of the night remote. Probably not a lot of people have done that in their past, but hey, I made the best of working all night long.
And that's what to do. You have to be creative and figure out ways of being able to reach your audience.
Yeah, you just got to stay awake.
Yeah, that too. Lots of caffeine.
Lots of caffeine. I actually fell asleep on the radio while talking.
Oh, no.
3:30 in the morning, we were supposed to do a 5-minute prayer time. Well,
there you go.
I had beautiful music in the background, and I'm praying, and I just stopped. My friend was listening. He goes, dear Lord, be with this and that. And he says, you just stop talking. I'm just hearing this music for like 3 minutes. I'm like, oh, my God. He fell asleep on the radio. And I did. I was out cold, just with my head leaned up against the mic, listening to this incredible music. And then, unfortunately, I started to talk in my sleep, and it woke me up.
Good.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
The prayer suddenly went off the rails.
Yeah, it was. Then the ratings went down 350%.
So if your dream was to do radio, you tell your dad that your dream is to do radio. What was his reaction to the fact that, okay, you're actually fulfilling this dream of yours and you're living out what you wanted to do in grade 11?
Yeah, no, he was always my biggest fan for doing that. He's the one that got me the job. I don't think he knew it would be a career when he first got it, but I loved it. I went to college as soon as I got out of high school, and I failed broadcasting at a rather, I got all Fs. I didn't pass any class in broadcasting because it was boring. Yeah. I was like, no, I want to be on the radio, man. I've been on the radio. Don't get me reading these books. This is all. And I just thought, you people have no clue what you're doing. I mean, I don't care. Whatever year they invented the radio, I don't care, man. Just give me a tune and let's have some fun.
Yeah.
And so my first year of college was really good. I had a .01 grade average.
Wow, good for you.
I flunked phys ed too. And
how about lunch?
No, I did lunch.
Okay, good.
So Dad was not real proud of me at the end of year one, and we both decided that maybe I should pursue radio without college, and the college thought the same thing. I didn't need to come back. We all were pretty much on the same page. Move forward and do not return.
Yeah.
And the rest was history. I just love doing radio since then, and it's been a blast.
Why Christian radio, though? I mean, we know the big bucks is in the mainstream entertainment side.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in northern Michigan. We had no Christian radio stations at all. I think sometimes some of the mainstream on Sunday morning would play a church service or something. But I started hearing a little bit of contemporary Christian music. My mom and dad got me an Amy Grant album and a B.J. Thomas album. And I thought, I had no idea that there was anything like contemporary Christian music. And I was only allowed to listen to some of Amy Grant's songs. Mom put nail polish on the rocker ones. And so the needle wouldn't go through that track. True story. And which really made it tough for tracking an album when you had nail polish on cuts 1, 3, and 6. You know what I mean? It was but I thought, I would love to do this because, I don't know, I just fell in love with Christian music that was contemporary. And I was working at a top 40 station. I worked at a few of them, and it was fine. But I just felt like it would encourage people. And I love the music. And I don't know why. I had never heard a full-time Christian radio station that I thought was good. But I had a passion. I thought there's got to be a way you can have a Christian station sound as good as a mainstream station.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if that existed anywhere because that would have been back in 82. And in 83, I got hired at a station. It was WCIE in Florida, and it was the #1 Christian station. I didn't know even in the country.
Wow.
And it was amazing. I remember walking in, state-of-the-art studios. I'd never seen studios like this at any station. And they were playing contemporary music, giving away a cruise on the air. It sounded as good as any station in Tampa and Orlando. And I thought, whoa. And I got hired, and that was the beginning of, really living out what I thought Christian radio should sound like. And I've been watching some of the trades, and I've seen even over the last 6 months, they're the #1 station in Tampa. They beat everybody. And it just sort of makes me smile. I mean, it's been, 3 decades since I've worked there, but even back then, that was our prayer, that one day Christian radio could be #1 in the market. And you're seeing this at a lot of different markets where Christian radio is #1, #3. I mean, it's doing very well. So that was always my passion, and I've been able to live in it.
Was faith always a big part of your life? I mean, if you're in Upper Michigan, there's really nothing else to do. Is it essentially, music and church?
Yeah, and
it'd
school.
be music, church, or drink, and I chose the music and church. I mean, really, that was the 3 things. There wasn't a whole lot going on. I lived in a town of 400. I was a pastor's kid. And,
okay.
Yeah, and so faith was always a big part of my life. And that's why I think when I just got to be a senior in high school, I knew that I wanted to do Christian radio. If it existed, that was good. I couldn't do the real inspo or traditional. I mean, that stuff just killed me. But I thought there's got to be something. Then, of course, it wasn't long after that I heard like Petra and Larry Norman, and like there was actually even rock. I had no idea there was Christian rock. And my first concert was the Imperials. And it was, and they were a big deal back in the early 80s.
Back in the day.
And it wasn't with Russ Taff, it was Paul Smith. So it was right after the Russ Taff era. But they rocked it. And I'm like, whoa, this is so cool that there's Christian rock. So that's what got me on to the whole, hey, we got to find Christian rock bands. And so I did a radio show at WCIE on Saturdays called Living Water. Wasn't the coolest name. Sounded cool back then, not so much today. Pretty dorkish, but it was like Z Jam. It was really the beginning to Z Jam. It was on like maybe 6 stations because we happened to be on satellite. So 6 or 7 stations, but we were already starting to do pretty much what you heard on Z Jam, the beginning stages of it anyways. And then I worked at the Joy FM in Florida. I didn't do any rock shows there, but then I went to Way FM in Florida. And back then, Way FM was doing real top 40 CHR. And so that's why I went there, because I got to play all that music every day. And then shortly after that, started Z Jam, where I knew we would just really just jam and have a great time. And I just love all that music. And I love the people that did the bands. The other day, I was at a coffee shop here in my town, and I think the guy's name's Sam from Bleach. You guys remember the band Bleach?
Yes.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yes.
Comes walking up, he goes, Bill Scott. And I'm like, it took me a while to realize who he was, because I hadn't seen him in years. And then another guy, I don't know if you know this band. I don't even know who the guy was, but he was the lead singer from the band called The Wedding. Do you guys remember The Wedding? It was a smaller.
Do. It's very fuzzy, but it sounds
Wasn't their
familiar.
album Polarity?
I think so. And he came up right behind Sam going,
my word.
Oh, Bill. And I'm like, wow, it's like a Z-Jam reunion at Starbucks. That doesn't happen often, but it's nice to. It was just, I loved the bands in that era, with DC Talk, and I don't know who else was big back then, but it was really cool, and I was very passionate about it.
You clearly run into a lot of people in your town. I'm curious, any embarrassing moments or just kind of funny moments that have happened in passing?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
I was at a coffee shop, and I didn't realize the lead singer for Jars of Clay, is it Dan? Dan,
yeah.
So Dan is in front of me. I have no clue, and I hear music. I hear Jars of Clay. And I looked at my friend. I said, "One song, you got a career the rest of your life, huh?" And Dan turns around, and I'm like, "Oh, sweet Jesus!" And I just sort of looked. I thought, "Man, I just slammed Jars of Clay bad." I felt really bad. And I've learned you're careful when you talk about an artist in this town. I had lunch with one guy, and I said, "Man, that album sucked." And he looked at me, and goes, "I produced that album." Huh. Suck in a good way. It's just like, there's no redeeming cool at that point. So I learned you just don't say anything unless you're certain who you're around, because there's always somebody close by. I was at an award show at the Ryman's, and, I'm up at the nosebleed, and it was between the Newsboys and somebody else, and they were up for the song I Believe, right? And I started to boo because I wanted for King and Country to win. The guy next to me wrote the song I Believe. The only way I know that is when they won, his little boy looked at me and goes, "My dad wrote that song." And I was like, "Boo, yay." I thought, okay, I got to stop, man. I was just being funny because I wanted for King and Country to win. But yeah, you got to be real careful in Nashville when you're making fun of music or booing people that they're not sitting next to you.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have this goal, the dream of something like a Z-Jam. I mean, at its peak, like we said, Holly and I would gather around the radio and we would pop the popcorn. Did you think that when you started it, because I was mid-90s, that it would have exploded to what it was?
No, it was really weird. It was 96. Yeah, 96 we started it. I was like, wow, okay, it's going to be interactive. I'm just writing notes and trying to figure it out. And I was thinking, okay, first of all, how do you pay for something like this? Because there's satellite cost. And, I started a not-for-profit, but it was like, it was really, truly a not-for-profit because nobody gave. I didn't have any donors. And I remember I started out for the price of a pizza. I was going to ask stations to do like $10 a week. And nobody would do it. And I thought, okay, so, the whole slogan was, for a price of a pizza, you can reach kids in your area. Well, either people didn't like pizza or kids or both. I don't know. And so that wasn't working. And I was trying to get stations. And, it was back in 96, you had landlines. Mm-hmm. And so you had long distance cost. Well, I'm racking up a pretty big phone bill. And my wife goes, we can't keep doing this. I'm like, well, how am I going to let people know? She goes, if it's God's will, they'll sign up. Just pray. Yeah. I thought, well, that was pretty lame. And but I did start praying, and it was amazing. People started calling and going, hey, I'd like to air the show. And then it just, it really began to blow up. But I knew I wanted it more than music for a couple of reasons. If you get a good platform, I wanted to make an impact any way we could. And so I thought we need to start the Z-Jam Bible study. And we sent it out through email. Well, nobody had ever done a Bible study on email. And this is in 96. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I was just putting everybody in the CC area. I didn't know, well, there was no MailChimp back in the day. But we started sending out those Bible studies, which ended up being really huge. And then we started the Crisis Hotline, Teen Hope Line.
Yeah, I remember that.
And did that online. And that was really cool because, this would sound sort of a little bit religious, but it was like, I remember it in my office, I was on my computer, and I was not a techie guy, computer guy at all back in the day. And I just felt like the Lord showed me a vision of an online hotline. Because I knew that's where kids were at. That was really, the adults weren't there. It was more kids because it was the new thing. And I called my brother, and I didn't tell him. I felt like the Lord showed me this because he wouldn't have bought it. But I said, this is what I'm thinking of. And he told me exactly the software that would do it. It was very expensive. I think Dell Computers used it for customer service, et cetera. And so I wrote the president of that company a letter and said, look, kids are dying. Your software will save them. I need it for free. If you can still sleep at night, sleep. If not, here's my telephone number. It was that simple. I thought, hey, he's either going to like me or not. And he called me. He was a Jewish guy. I don't know where he lived. And he said, I can't sleep. He says, can you really do something with kids? I said, yes. And so he gave me all the software, set it up. And that's where Teen Hopeline got started. But yeah, I didn't know it was going to be as big, but it really grew quickly, and it was awesome to see so many radio stations have a heart to reach kids and young adults in their area.
How did you know the time was up to move on from?
You just know when there's different seasons in your life, and that was a hard season to really walk away from. Yeah, and God made it very clear it was that time, and. I've missed it a lot. Man, if I could do one more Z-Jam show, it would be amazing. I love doing that. I travel during the week, but I always look forward to getting home either Friday night or Saturday morning to get in those studios. And that was just like my happy spot for 3 hours every Saturday night. And it's just nice to think back on it. And I think I've got some DAT tapes around here that got Z-Jam on it, but I can't find my DAT, player. I threw it out or something. I don't know.
99% of people don't know what that is.
Yeah. They probably don't know. It's just it's a digital cassette recorder basically for broadcasters. And so I have nothing to air it on, but I do have a box of these tapes of Z-Jam that I would love to hear again one day. Wouldn't that be fun just to sort of to hear
throwbacks?
Yeah, it would definitely be a throwback. That's for sure.
You have this heart for raising money. You have this heart, you have all these people coming in, and for the price of a pizza, they bought into Z-Jam, and there's so much that you're able to do. Once the radio thing was over, did you realize that there was something that you said, hey, there's still an opportunity for me to help out not-for-profit organizations?
Yeah, I had all the three major stations I worked for were not-for-profit, so I learned to just sort of fundraise. I didn't realize I had learned it, but I had. And I started working for a company back in, I think it was 93. I would just do some contract work, and it was fundraising. And I thought, wow, okay, I can actually do this, and it seems to work. And so I enjoyed it, and I just did it sort of on the side over the years. But after Z-Jam was done, I thought, well, maybe I need to press into this, because I felt like the Lord kept going, you need to do fundraising. I'm like, no, I really don't want to do fundraising. But I could tell that I had a gift for it. And I thought, okay, well, God's given me this gift. He knows better than I do where I need to go in the future. And so I started really pressing in, and I was doing a lot, like maybe 30 fundraisers a year. Wow. And, most of those are a week at a time. And I really liked it. And then about 2.5 years ago, I started my own company to do it. And it's just been great. And I'm very happy doing it because, I get a chance to get on the radio. So I love the radio. Yeah. And I'd go nuts without it. So at least I get to do a little bit on the radio. And so, but I do like helping the not-for-profits and watching stations grow and go to the next level. I mean, some of them have been real small stations and have grown, and some of them are, major market stations. But it doesn't matter to me as long as they're empowered to reach people for Christ and have the finances to do that. It's really cool. So I feel like I've got my DNA in many different radio station and not-for-profits because I get to come alongside them. And I figured out the other day when I couldn't sleep in the middle of the night, I think I've been to at least 125 different radio stations.
Wow.
In North America. And Central America too, I guess. But most of it North America. And I thought, that's pretty cool that I've had at least a little piece to play in over 100 different radio stations. I think that's pretty cool.
Did you ever think your mission would be in radio?
No, I didn't. But I'm so glad. I mean, and I was thinking about the other day because I have some friends, they've spent 10, 20 years in radio and some shorter. But, I've spent my entire career. It's been, it's been 41 years. I've had a chance to work in radio, and I pray that I'll get a chance to do that until I retire one day. But to me, that's a pretty big gift. To spend your entire life in something that you are so passionate about, because not everybody gets the opportunity to do that. And so I'm very grateful. I've had 41 years. I can't believe I'm saying 41 years. But, and now next thing I want to do a podcast. And I just need to make time for it because it's a form of broadcasting. And I have no idea what it would be. I don't know. I might go by Dr. Love and give advice for dating. I don't know. Probably wouldn't go over well.
Oh, dear.
I don't know. I don't know what it would be, but I think it's such a great outreach.
Yeah.
And it's a form of broadcasting, and I love that. And so at some point, I'm going to do a podcast, and watch out, it's going to take over the world.
I mean, it's a completely different medium in the sense, because you get to spend more time.
Yeah.
Holly and I are 250 plus episodes over 5 years of doing this.
Wow.
Yeah.
But the heart behind it is our next question, because we did the morning show together for 11 years. Holly and I, we've known each other for 20?
Yeah, about that.
Wow.
And we found that there were people who were struggling, in the hills and valleys of life.
Yeah.
And so, Holly, this is part of the reason why we do this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when people are struggling, they always need encouragement. We can't struggle alone. Often we try. We need God. We also need, people to walk with us. And so everyone goes through why me moments. And for you, Bill, looking back over your life, has there been a why me moment that you've experienced that you were able to, walk your way out of slowly but surely?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, unfortunately, there's been a couple of them, but I think everybody has them. Nobody gets out of this life without some scars.
Yeah.
I think it's how you respond to them that makes all the difference in the world, right? And, I can remember I guess it was about 9 years ago. My mom had cancer, and at the end of her cancer, when she passed away, literally a week later, my brother knocks on my door. He's got stage 4 cancer. In the middle of that, another family member calls. They got stage 4. So I'm doing I did 3 different hospice and funerals in 10 months. And it was really just mind-blowing and exhausting to go through that. And, it's like a good majority of my family just gone in 10 months.
Yeah.
And so those are tough times, but I think you have to decide, do you believe that God is in control or not, and allow him to rebuild your life to a new normal. It's never going to be the same, but it can be just as good, but different. And it takes time. I mean, during those times you have choices. Are you going to go off the rail? Are you going to drink? You self-medicate, and whatever that may look like. Everybody's different. Or are you really going to press into God and just walk it out one day at a time? And yeah, there's times you're like, why me? And, everybody has that. It's not a bad question. But the why you is just simply because we live in a broken world. Pain, death, hurt. And I think one of my favorite verses during that time and a few others is Psalm, I think it's 51:17. Heart-shattered lives ready for love don't for a moment escape God's notice. So even when you're in the valley and your heart is broken, because I remember I had somebody ask me how my heart was, and I said, I don't have one. It's just gone. It's shattered. And then I read that verse, and I thought, wow. And it doesn't escape God's notice, and that he loves me. And so that just told me that God was crazy about me. And I've learned over time, God begins to heal. He begins to rebuild. And your life is just as good. Might be different, but it's just as good. And sometimes even better once you get out of the valleys. I think it's when you're in the valley, though, you got to surround yourself with good people and not just trust yourself.
Yeah.
You walk alone, you die alone. Mm-hmm. And that's why community is so important. And I think it's good, like you, Holly, having some ladies around you that are true inner circle friends, right, that you can trust. And same thing with me. I've had some guys that are walking with me, and it's just good to know that they can tell you, you're not processing correctly. Don't do that or do this, or, hey, can I just come sit with you for a little while? It makes all the difference in the world on how you are able to go through the valley and then back out of it. Yeah. Because I think some people get stuck and they never come out of that valley. They just don't have good people walking with them and reminding them that God's crazy about them and will perform a miracle in their life and heal them.
So very true. It's easy to forget that and those promises.
Oh, very much so.
Get stuck on we've got the burdens, like the first part of the verse, but there's always that second call, God's promise to you. And we got to keep reading through the whole verse, not just that first part.
His podcast is in the near future.
Yeah.
41 years in radio, but he's not old, even though his first request on the radio was from Moses. Bill, brother, we appreciate you taking some time and saying yes.
That really hurt. That's all I'm going to say. That really hurt. I'm leaving this podcast wounded. I am a wounded man. I've now entered in a whole new valley. Be praying for me. Thank you, John.
But you're not going to walk alone.
Well, I don't want to walk with you. You're the one that put me there. Holly, walk with me, all right?
I've got you. I got your back.
All right, there we go.
Thank you for tuning in to an old episode, a past guest of our Why Me Project rerun.
Something that we're starting now because there are so many episodes that we really did love, and they've kind of disappeared from the digital world.
And speaking of digital world, I did a little recon. There are at least 9 different platforms in which you can listen to the Why Me Project podcast.
Okay.
So there's no excuses, but I mean, some of the main ones like Apple Podcast and or Spotify.
And you could always head to our social media accounts to stay up to date, as each and every Wednesday we have a brand new episode for Why Me Project. And you can also let us know if there's someone that you would like to hear on a future episode.
At Why Me Project on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Why Me Project at Outlook.com.